To all the colleagues in the room, and thank you for making time to be part of this important briefing. And we welcome our leaders from the Border Management Authority and from ACSA. Let me introduce the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato, and the Chief Executive Officer of Airports Company South Africa, Mrs. Mpumi Mpofu. Once again, members of the media, delegates in the room, good morning. My name is Memme Mohotsi. I'm the Deputy Assistant Commissioner for Communications and Marketing at the Border Management Authority. We have gathered this media briefing to announce collaborative efforts between ACSA and the BMA on ensuring that the seamless processing of movement in our ports of entry, especially at airports. And without wasting much time, I will be inviting our two leaders to deliver their remarks in terms of why we are gathered here for this briefing. I will first allow the Chief Executive Officer of Airports Company South Africa, Mrs. Mpofu, to deliver her remarks to the media, followed by the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority. From then on, we'll engage on a question and answer session where we will allow media an opportunity to pose charity-seeking questions.
A very good morning. Let me recognize the presence of the Commissioner for Border Management Authority. Yes, no, thank you very much. A very good morning to yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Let me recognize the presence of Dr. Mike Masiapato, the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority. Let me also recognize amongst us the presence of senior executives both in BMA and Airports Company South Africa, and yourselves, ladies and gentlemen of the media, who we have asked to gather here today with us at OR Tambo, the important gateway to the world for South Africa. Thanks for accepting this invitation. We have a very active festive season and we have had a number of incidents, and we thought we would keep you engaged in this regard so that we're able to keep yourselves and the public informed about what is going on at the airport in the midst of several media reports on several incidences. I think the first thing to indicate is that we both are here as the heads of two institutions that are responsible for facilitating passengers, and the role that air transport plays in our economy is quite an important one. And we take both our passengers seriously, but the negative impact on the economy that comes with disruptions in the flow of passengers during this peak season as a matter of quite serious, needing serious attention. Now, OR Tambo serves a very important gateway during peak season particularly, and plays an important role as one of our key international airports. We have 3 ports of entries, and we know that Oliver Tambo, King Shaka and Cape Town largely carry and facilitate international and domestic passengers during this time, facilitating both trade and tourism into our tourism destinations in the country, but also ferrying people internationally. Generally, we have a program that we start around about September in the preparation of the peak season, and we engage all the stakeholders. And in the engagement of stakeholders, we normally require plans from all of the stakeholders, which are submitted, considered, rectified, discussed, and the last of these engagements actually happened around November, with absolute commitment from the various stakeholders that we are ready for the festive season. All systems are ready to carry the numbers that we are going to ferry throughout the season. We ourselves as ACSA also indicate the same. The incidences that have happened, though, indicate not as a result of lack of planning, but almost events that were unplanned that really disrupted the activities of the festive season. Our ecosystem works on the basis of multiple stakeholders, and I think it's important to indicate that. That's why when we speak as Airports Company South Africa, we do so after consultation with the rest of the stakeholders on our platform. So this environment is actually an airport community that is run consisting of airlines, cargo operators, ground handlers, hotels, public transport operators, stakeholders, South African Police Service, crime intelligence, customs. I saw a colleague here from customs, Eguruleni, police department, retailers and commercial operators. All of us with a clear commitment of delivering an excellent service, and importantly, delivering a pleasant service and passenger journey throughout the year. The challenge that comes with having full volume or fuller volumes during peak season do require specific attention. And I can confirm that for this festive season, like any other, we conducted ourselves by putting in place plans that would have indicated additional staff, additional resourcing, and also clear indication of how we're going to manage the festive season. Let me also add that the industry has evolved in terms of safety regulations, the business model and the regulatory regime, and as such, the structure and the operating systems of our airports are highly regulated. So we really have to be 100% on point because of the requirements on safety and efficient travel that accompanies this environment. Aviation is a highly safety sensitive area where nothing can go wrong. And as such, we are also really disappointed in the events that have happened because the rigorous planning that came into place basically did not anticipate the events that actually did occur. The reason why we're here with our stakeholders, BMA, jointly to confirm operational readiness for the balance of the festive season to yourselves is, as Airports Company South Africa, we traditionally have a briefing session. We had this briefing session on the 12th of December, and it's an annual occurrence. We normally take journalists through the platform, show you the numbers in the first Friday of the school holidays, numbers coming through, and start to show you and share with you quite detailed presentations around our projections of numbers of people expected, what we've put in place to welcome them, how many staff members we've increased, how we've gotten rid of problems that used to be maybe in the parking area. And we really take journalists through so that you can walk with us in this journey and prepare. We have 2 peaks. The first peak, which is generally higher, is this one of December in the outbound, what we call the outbound journey, where most people are traveling either internationally or domestically. And what we really would like to do, as we normally do as airports company South Africa, is to share that detailed information with you. Because we think if you understand better exactly what we're dealing with, the numbers that we're dealing with, the crowds that come through, you'll have a clearer perspective than I think you sometimes do when it's driven by some of these incidences. So, two things are going to happen with respect to that. I'm going to give you a high-level summary, but we've also asked my colleague, after the commissioner has spoken, to then do a quick presentation. Because one of the things that we're wanting to do, given the recent occurrence, is really make a proposal for altering arrangements for the balance of the festive season. And that's really the key message we would like coming out of today. That recognizing two incidences that were unrelated happening on this platform, we're going to make a proposal around different arrangements so that we ease travel during the balance of the festive season. So there are three issues that I'd like to address just to close off on matters that were already on the table. The first one I'd like to just confirm. We had a press briefing on the 12th. We indicated that we had an incident related to jet fuel. We shared pictures showing a drive shaft that was sheared, shattered, broken, and we said we're going to take that to the lab and do analysis around that. When we get the results of that, we'll come back to you. I must be able to indicate that that has already happened. The engineers and metallurgists who are responsible for this have taken the part. It's in the lab, it's being analyzed, and at this point one thing has happened. They've asked for additional information which has then been supplied to them, and we do not have the results yet of that, given the additional information that was required to enable us to analyze the real cause. Now, this thing of analyzing this drive shaft is actually quite important, because what it does is it's going to tell us the several options, and we can't predict which one, but we can just give you an idea on some of the things may be possible. One is, it's possible that they'll come back to us and say the torque was too high. So i.e., I don't know how many people understand our car words, but if you imagine a drive shaft in a valve, that would mean the torque was too high, and that would have caused it to spin out of normal speed and crack, and that would be one finding potentially. The other would potentially be indicating that the temperature in that space was too high, and that's what caused this particular incident of shattering. The third option is to, maybe they would say it's an issue of acidity, and that acidity may have contributed to the drive shaft breaking up, or being fractured in the way that it was. All of those, on any other that they may find, we don't prejudge what the lab is going to say, but all of those options that will come out will then give us a clear indication as to the real root cause for the drive shaft to shatter. But we actually just didn't stop there. We went forward and did some work also on the Thursday on the 12th of December, which was to replace a valve. And the replacement of a valve was an additional safety measure, which was to ensure stability of the system after the replacement of the drive shaft. The second issue we have reported on is that realistically we've been in this process of upgrading the jet fuel system. And it is unfortunate that what happened with the drive shaft happens at this time, when in fact we were in the process of finalizing what's called the bypass, which means creating an additional route and a new pipe that would have been implemented in order to bypass, so that if an incident happens in the one route, we would bypass and go to another route. That project is already underway. It is going to be completed by February 2025. And in a sense, it was unfortunate that it wasn't completed before December, but that's a bypass. The third project, which is the third layer of protection, would have actually been an implementation of a new jet line, which, one, the design consultant is already in place. They were appointed through a procurement system. They have started doing the work. They are delivering a product in February 2025. in March 2025, we expect the contractor, on the basis of the design work, to come in and start installing that additional line, which basically would conclude the work, three-phase work now that we've done in stabilizing the system and ensuring that we don't have another incident. And that really would give you a clear sense of a multi-pronged assurance program that we have of various projects. First is the replacement of the parts, the second is a bypass, the third is the replacement of the line, which all are intended to stabilize the system and ensure that we don't have such challenges again. And all of this, colleagues, I must hasten to add, all of this could not happen earlier than today, could not happen earlier than 2024, simply because ACSA received its permission for the 5-year period for infrastructure projects, gazetted by the Minister of Transport in January 2024, which comes with the regulator's permission, and allowed into the budget on the 1st of April 2024. And those projects are now starting, all the projects that are going to bring us up to speed and recover. We've commonly spoken about a 21.7 billion that has been allocated to ACSA, and it comes with that gazette from January 2024, starting from 1st of April 2024, the implementation of 21.7 billion. But that amount comes in tranches every year for a 5-year period, during which we can confirm 70% of that amount has been allocated for refurbishment and rehabilitation projects, such as this jet line, and they fall within those categories. So ours really is to fast track the implementation of these particular infrastructure and systems, and ensure that we get back to every system being fully fledged, fully operational, and really brand new. And that's what we're required to do. But the reason we are seeing indicators of problems is because between 2019 and April 2024, effectively, we were not able to implement projects. And that's the primary reason. Everything came to a halt. We made significant losses, and we repeat the sad story of losing 2.5 billion in 2020, losing 1.5 billion in the next year, losing 1 billion the following year. The year prior to this one, we actually made a loss of minus 43 million, and only in 23-24 did we declare a profit of 472. And that means we're fully recovered financially, but it means we're lagging behind in terms of the infrastructure that we are to implement. Because again, typical PFMA environment, you get the money in April, you start the processes of creating demand requisition, you go into the SCM process, you follow the route, you then get a design consultant, contractor, etc., as we have followed. So in a sense, I think that helps to give context just on the jet fuel issue. The second issue I'll address, but I'll summarize on that because the Commissioner is going to address it, is the issue of the Border Management Authority, which again, after we had addressed you on the 12th of December, as we normally do, there were then delays and queues on the 14th of December as a result of the border management system experiencing some problems. I'll leave that to the Commissioner to answer and deal with in detail. But just to say, from our perspective, we've looked at the issues related to the impact of delays at immigration, and what we are going to propose is really a mechanism that assists border management whilst they are sorting out their system. Commissioner confirms that that will be sorted out by today, and that means even despite that, we really want to be cautious as Airport Company South Africa and announce a different dispensation so that we're able to cope. Not only do we have to cope with potential incidences of this nature, but more importantly, we have to cope with the bigger numbers that are going to come through our airport, and it appears that this year is even more significant. I will deal with that at this point. Now, our projections indicate that we will have 119,696 international passengers, and that means both departure and arrival. And we're going to have 262, 108 domestic passengers that are expected between today and the 24th of December. And we hope that gives you a little context of what numbers we are managing in this airport, which is generally not the tradition, and how high our peak is compared to normal operations. The busiest day generally in this period is traditionally the Friday. So the first Friday when schools close, the second Friday, which was the 13th, and we're expecting tomorrow, the 20th, to also be the busiest in the whole peak now. And that would give us 20,886 international passengers coming through, and that's both departures and arrivals, and 39,423 domestic travelers on the 20th. On the basis of the detailed information we have around how many passengers are coming through, etc., we are then also preparing for the next period, which is from January the 2nd to January the 15th, which is generally another peak of people coming back. But let me just hasten to add that the January peak is normally steadier than the December peak. So when people are going, they go faster than when they come back. They literally come back, and that curve slows down towards the 15th. But some people actually come back the following week of the 20-something of January, and others come back, later on. So that slope in January is not as high as the December slope. And if you understand that will just show you how we then do our detailed plans in order to deal with that. Now, we have an established team with BMA, and I'm confirming what the Commissioner will also say. And as a result of the incident of the 14th, the technical team has been established, comprising of the critical partners here on the platform who are responsible for execution. That's ACSA, BMA, SABC, SARS, SSA, EMPD, and other role players, the airlines, the ground handlers, etc., which we as airports company feed into in terms of the information. And that basically constitutes a multidisciplinary approach that we'll have for managing this particular situation for the balance of the festive season. Remember, I said the festive season constitutes of the initial peak, which is tomorrow, but more importantly then has the January 2nd peak that we're also catering for. We understand, importantly also, that we've had to do work to invest in training, and the training between ourselves and BMA, we periodically do joint and regular training exercises to ensure that our teams are prepared to handle a range of security scenarios, but also the issues related to travel. As a result of consultation and as a result of just looking at the few incidences we've had, we are proposing a alternative arrangement, and this is akin to what we have used during COVID times in order to be able to manage the big numbers that are coming through this festive season. So after consultation with BMA and ourselves to make travel easier and more pleasurable for travelers in this coming peak starting from tomorrow, this measure that we've used in COVID would actually ask for travelers to extend the time they spend at the airport, while therefore moving away from the traditional 2 hours before international travel, and we're requesting passengers to arrive in this instance for this peak season 3 hours before. Just that additional hour is able to help us ease both the big numbers that are coming through, but also ensuring that we're able to support BMA in the implementation of their particular system. The plea for domestic, and the 3 hours is for international, the plea for domestic is to ask passengers to arrive 2 hours before departure times. And again, it's not the norm of the 1 hour, but extending it to 2 hours so that we can manage the numbers quite efficiently as we normally do in terms of both immigration procedures, but effectively check-in and security arrangements that are made. The other message we'd like to leave with members of the public is really just to ask that they work with us in this period. And prior to planning and getting to the airport, we really would want people to be fully au fait with the parking arrangements, the secure parking arrangements, so they are not stressed and rushed when they come to the airport. What we do emphasize is that if they are not being dropped off, that initial journey is sometimes in the peak season quite complicated. But we've made available long-term parking in places which will have shuttles that take people from that long-term parking back into the terminal building. And the reason we make this arrangement is specifically to ease up on the tension that happens when people are looking for spaces because they're in a hurry and they're in the expensive part of the airport. In the long-term parking, we've got special dispensation arrangements that will make it easier. But again, it can only work if they arrive earlier as we request, so that they're able to come through. The second is basically to ask that they look at their airlines' terms and conditions, such as baggage restrictions and other constraints that they may have. There are normally other issues that contribute towards irritation at queues, and that relates to excess baggage. When somebody has more baggage and suddenly they are told they must go and pay, and then they get irritated and there's disruption at that. So just dealing with the excess baggage that is very symptomatic of the Christmas period is an important one. The staff at security gates have also been instructed to enforce airline rules on hand luggage. So please make sure that you are complying with the weights of specific hand luggage and the restrictions that are related there. Again, there's another issue that causes irritation when you get here and you get told your hand luggage is not allowed, you've got too many pieces and it's too big, etc. Just please work with us, pay attention to those elements and plan your journey very carefully. The other issue then relates to uncertainty. We are putting up additional information kiosks throughout the platform just to be able to facilitate passengers. We normally do for peak season anyway. But also what we're asking is we have an ACSA app that is available on Google Play or Apple Store for those who are Apple based. And that app is really meant to help you navigate the various airports and the platforms that you're going to be. It really does help to use it. Cashless transaction at the parking, it's actually quite useful. I think to conclude, the reality of this situation is reflective of a period during which we have high numbers of people coming through the airport. It's also symptomatic of a period which is really a transitional period where our upgrading refurbishment projects have really not been fully implemented, and that's why we're in this particular position. But we are a regulated entity. We get a tariff that is scheduled by the regulator, which dictates exactly when the money we get comes in, and we are then guided by those processes. Let me also indicate that what really has been quite problematic about the incidences related to this is we come to you as ACSA fully aware of our obligation to be held accountable and fully accountable to yourselves as the public and our stakeholders around what has happened during this period. We open transparently to you, and the presentation will be able to indicate transparently on how we operate, what assumptions we make, how we perform, what staff we deploy, even if we can't give you too much detail in case those who have nefarious agendas get hold of the information. But generally we're very open about what it is that we're doing, and we're transparent, and I hope today will constitute that particular spirit of ACSA really walking with you. And that's why we do detailed presentations. We do them so that you've got all the information in your hands and you can really understand where we're coming from with respect to this. What I think has been unfortunate is that, and I speak to the media in general, that these incidences have led to personal attacks that are unwarranted, particularly on social media. There is not one day when ACSA has chosen not to inform the public about what's going on. Not a single day. There's not one day. In fact, we overdo it. We spend 3 hours on the 12th, really ensuring that the message is getting through. And when we get to the point of being right at the bottom and are able to, denigrate individuals for things that are not associated with them, we really think it's unfortunate, because we think we do our part. We think you are working with us, and we are a executive team that is responsible for executing these functions. And at no point we believe that, particularly social media can denigrate themselves by getting into chauvinistic language and misogynistic language and sexism and all of that. It's really just unbecoming. In a country where we have democracy, where we fought for gender equality, it really is unwarranted that we can be addressed as such, as people given the responsibilities of running this airport. So let me lay our commitment to transparently engaging the South African public, always reporting. We'll come back to you, as we normally do, in January, and we give you the figures, and we say, this is what happened in the January month. This is how many people passed through. These are the incidences we had. These are the people we caught doing criminal things. These are the activities that happened in our platform. These are how many airlines. This is how much cargo went through our system. We are extremely transparent. And we really hope that everybody understands that we do so, firstly, out of the obligation that we have, but more importantly, we do so not expecting that we can be denigrated with behavior and attitudes that are really not in keeping with the constitution of this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, CEO, for those informative remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to highlight that we will be sharing the content after the media briefing. And we would like to now invite the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato, to deliver a statement on behalf of the BMA.
Thank you very much, Deputy Assistant Commissioner Mukhodzi. Colleagues, let me start by recognizing the presence of the Chief Executive Officer of Airports Company South Africa, Madam Bumi Mpofu, all the executives from ACSA who are in the room, the Deputy Assistant Commissioners, and all of the colleagues from the Border Management Authority. And let's also appreciate members of the media for having come through for this conversation. So colleagues, from the BMA side, the remarks will be very short, primarily on the basis that the CEO had covered the entire environment, as it were. But I think the first thing that we need to indicate, colleagues, is to say that myself and the CEO here actually spoke and fairly decided to have this joint conversation, particularly just on the issues around OR Tambo, as it were. And the reason why we had to do that is because traditionally, when challenges kicks in, sometimes you find that leaders disappear, as it were, and effectively start deploying the traditional philosophical approach of the proverbial bus, where we have then see as to which one to be thrown under the bus. So in this instance, we had consciously agreed that we are not going to use that as an approach, but we are going to be having this conversation and be able to reflect on the issues and be able to take accountability where there has been issues that we had to account for. Now, let me then start by indicating, I think fairly the members of the media are aware that as the CEO indicated in terms of ACSA, as the BMA, we launched our festive season plan on the 2nd of December, where we literally laid out all the facets in terms of the preparations for our festive season. We have spoken about the preparations we've made, and now we are in the execution phase, particularly at the exit part of it. And then in January, we are going to handle the return leg in terms of the plan, as it were. And again, just for contextual recap, you will remember that as the BMA, we are covering all of the 71 ports of entry in the country, 52 of those being land ports of entry, of which the majority of our colleagues are now hard at work facilitating people as they are exiting through those particular platforms. But of course, the second area, which is within the context of the area we are at today, is that we operate in 10 international airports. And of course, out of those 10, there will be those that are ACSA managed, but there will be some that are actually managed outside ACSA, but we actually do work in as far as that is concerned. And we also do work in 9 seaports, as you will fairly be aware of. The most critical issue that we want to emphasize is the fact that in doing the work in this kind of spaces, we are fairly covering 5 critical areas of work. The most popular critical area of work is what we call immigration management, where we facilitate people movement within the context of them having to enter or exit the jurisdiction, but having to produce the requisite documentation as required by international protocols for them to either exit or enter the Republic. The second part of the work we do, obviously, is the port health related work, which we also do here at OR Tambo, mainly the screening of the people that are entering the Republic, in making sure that we manage if infectious diseases or any kind of communicable disease, as it were. But the third area of work that we deal with is what we call agricultural biosecurity work. That is in terms of scanning all of your baggage as the people enter the Republic, to make sure that we don't have the importation of any agricultural products that might be harmful to the Republic. And of course, the fourth area of work is the work that we call environmental biosecurity work, again in making sure that we protect the Republic from any possible importation of infectious or invasive species, as it were, into the Republic. And of course, the last one is just broader law enforcement within the context of access control and all of those into the port. So that is fairly that as a context. Now, today we are talking within the environment of air. And of course, as we have indicated in our statements, in terms of our key 3 international airports that we put more effort on, the bigger and the first being OR Tambo International, where we are, and of course followed by Cape Town International, and then followed by Kinshasa in Durban, as it were. And those are basically the areas where we put much of the effort on. Now, we had indicated, colleagues, that we are fairly anticipating full recovery to the pre-COVID numbers of more than 6 million. And I suppose that is one thing that we have started seeing in terms of the numbers that we have started seeing coming into the country. Now, as the CEO had indicated, we are a stakeholder as the Border Management Authority within the airport, under the broader leadership of ACSA, which is in charge of the entire activities in as far as the port is concerned. The BMA's work is fairly limited on the international side of the airport, primarily to be able to do the work in terms of facilitating people movement in that context, and we do not have presence in the domestic side because that is outside the framework. Now, the CEO had indicated that indeed there was this day where we had a bit of a challenge, and we want to indicate this point that you will be aware that for many years, particularly since 2010, we've been using a system called Enhanced Movement Control System as the Border Management Authority, which is a system fairly inherited from the Department of Home Affairs as we took over last year on the 1st of April 2023. Immediately after that, we had to deploy that particular system, but we had to then bring in a new system with the intention to enhance the security aspect in as far as our border management work is concerned, and that gave rise to us having to implement the biometric movement control system, which is effectively a system that enables us to take biometric of travelers for us to be able to ensure that the people who enters the Republic are indeed the people that they claim to be, and of course they are not necessarily to enter the country with fraudulent documentation, as it were. Now, this particular work of rolling out the BMCS, as we call it, is something that we have rolled out throughout all of the various ports out there. Now, it was just on the basis of this particular day that the CEO had referenced, where we had a bit of a technical glitch in terms of the biometric movement control system. Now, if you are to look at the 71 ports that we are referencing, we are basically indicating that out of the 71, 70 ports had been incident-free in as far as this aspect is concerned, and it was only one, which is OR Tambo, where we had this particular glitch, as it were. Now, when that actually came through, we had to make sure that we respond with speed, and we had been able to deploy all our key top ICT officials on the ground to make sure that the issue is effectively addressed, and we are then able to get back to normal as fast as possible, and that has effectively been done. However, on the basis of the numbers that had been clearly coming into the space, we are finding it very clear that we did not necessarily have enough systems to can be able to kind of cope with the pressures, and it is for that reason that we had to then bring in additional systems. On that basis, I can confirm that 14 new systems have been brought into OR Tambo to be able to make sure that we bring in further capacity from a system point of view, but we also had to bring additional human resources to be able to deal with the challenge, as it were. 4 of those systems had already been connected, particularly at the entry side. Need to be able to identify them by the name and be able to make sure that that is actually transmitted into this number. So we just want to use this opportunity to announce the number is 0801 229 019. So the number is 0801 229 019. So this is the number to report anything relating to border management, and we will definitely get the issue attended to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Masia Pato. Thank you once again to the CEO, Mrs. Mpofu. At this point, members of the media who would like to engage in a question and answer session. We are welcoming a presentation from ACSA before the question and answer session. Thank you.
We can sit there.
Our manager, Mr. Jabulani Kambule from ACSA. He's responsible for OR Tambo and Aviation.
Thank you. Just a second for the guys to fix the project. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Members of the media, colleagues from ACSA, colleagues from the BMA, and the Commissioner and the CEO of ACSA. My name is Jabulani Kambule, Regional General Manager for OR Tambo and Bramfisher International Airport. I'm going to take you through a presentation on the BMCS system that took place at OR Tambo, the impact, what we're doing about it with ACSA, and the interventions operationally to ease and assist the passengers. I'm going to take you through a couple of slides, which is the context, which we already know what happened, the impact on on-time performance during the 3 days up until the 17th, and then delayed flights, hourly passenger movements, hourly air traffic movements, average queue times, as well as ACSA operational interventions. And then the last slide will be the core messaging that we are sending to the traveling public on the preparations for their travel. So the context is that The challenge actually started on the 15th of December in the afternoon. That was a Sunday at OR Tambo, where the biometric movement control system was non-responsive, and as reported by BMA, and this resulted in long queues at international departures and arrivals during peak hours. So the impact of this incident on the 3 days, you would see on the slides there we've got 3 graphs. The first one is our on-time performance on Sunday when the incident started, and then on Monday, the 16th of December, where it had an effect for the whole day. You would see then that on-time performance dropped to 62%. And on the 17th, because of the interventions and the collaboration we did also with BMA to try and fast track, and then you see that on-time performance started picking up again towards our target of 85%. Delay assignments, and I just want to share this information to all of you colleagues so that you understand the context of delays and the different entities that operate at OR Tambo that also contribute to the drop or the improvement in on-time performance. And you will see I've also got 4 pie charts there. The one in the bottom right, it's actually a summary of the different entities or operators at the airport that contribute to the delays or contribute to on-time performance. So I'm going to go to the bottom pie chart, and you will notice the government, which is what we then attribute BMA to, contributed about 4.41% to the entire delays on the day, in the last 3 days. Airlines contribute 51.52% in terms of the delays. And then airport operator, which is Airports Company in South Africa, we contribute 0.82%. And then air traffic movement contributes 3.6%. Now, what are these activities that we're talking about that causes the delays? For example, airlines contributing 51.52% of the airport delays caused by their own operational delay reasons, such as late arrivals, the aircraft arrived late, technical delays, what they need to do to fix the aircraft and so forth, passenger convenience, a passenger arrived late, or there was a boarding call, the passenger didn't show up, that also causes delays in the aircraft, weather-related issues, as well as then there will be a small portion of BMA that could be attributed there. But when we say BMA, it's not about the system. It will then be about a passenger who's traveling without proper documentation or whatever the case might be, and that passenger will have to be pulled aside to be dealt with by the authorities until they are cleared to move. Secondly, the highest delays are those exogenous delays, which contributed about 31%. These are delays that are beyond airlines or airport operators' control, such as the weather in most cases. When the weather goes bad, aircraft can't take off, aircraft can't land, and then they have to rotate or even not leave the ports of origin for them to take off. So those are other reasons for delays. Then there are provider delays. When you say provider delays, we're talking about ground handlers, fueling companies, which are about 8.16%, and these delays are related to such late or lack of equipment, such as buses, or there could be issues with steps in the ground handling operators, there could be issues with fueling trucks, etc., or catering-related delays. Airport Authority, which is Airports Company in South Africa, contributed 0.52%. This was mostly infrastructure-related delays, such as a passenger loading bridge might have a technical challenge that will be dealt with. Now, when a passenger loading bridge, we're saying have a challenge, is that it is that long thing that stretches out and connects to an aircraft. So at times, not all the time, you will just have a problem there with the person operating the loading bridge, and that may cause a minor delay. So those are the kind of delays we're talking about. And finally, BMA, what we are attributing specifically now to the BMCS incident, you would see that it contributed only 3.69% to the delays over the 3 days. And delays directly attributed to the challenge, 7 flights were affected, and that resulted in 248 delay minutes that we are attributing specifically to this event. In terms of international air traffic movements and passengers, on the 15th of December, I'm just going to show you. So this information, it's information we share on a daily basis with everybody that operates at OR Tambo International Airports. The BMA, the police, customs, airlines, everyone that is involved in operations. And we give you information on an hourly basis. So at any given time, anybody operating at the airport should know what the peaks of the airport are. And you would see in the graphs there, at the top in terms of air traffic movements, the bottom, as well as air traffic movements and passengers, you will notice there that the first peak in terms of arrival passengers between 9 o'clock and 11 a.m. The second peak will start between 2 in the afternoon as well as 4 in the afternoon. The third peak in terms of arrivals will be between 7 in the evening and 8 o'clock in the evening. So those are the 3 peaks you will have in terms of international arrival movement. In terms of international departure movement, the peak then slightly changes. The first peak will be at between 8 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The second peak will be between 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 8 o'clock in the evening. So this information is distributed to everyone so that everyone can plan and prepare, and there will be no excuses why we are not prepared for the number of passengers that are coming through our airport at any given time. Everybody should know that at 7 o'clock it gets busy and all counters should be manned so that we process our passengers efficiently. This is information for the 16th of December. The peaks are also the same. You can see the reflection there in terms of numbers, hourly numbers that we facilitate throughout the day. And then that is the 17th of December. And finally, I'm just going to take you through the processing times during the incident. Target minutes, in terms of arrivals, you should expect to wait about 10 minutes when you arrive at immigration. But because we had the system challenge, that took passengers at international arrivals to at least about 30 minutes. In terms of international departures, you're supposed to wait in the queue or a passenger to be processed within 5 minutes. During the incident, it took about 30 to 40 minutes because of the system challenge. Now, the commissioner did confirm that they are fixing the system today. It should be fixed, so we should be going back to the targeted minutes. However, it is for this reason that we are asking our passengers to arrive early, and I will give you the times or the intervention and the request we're making to the traveling public. ACSA operational interventions during the incidents in the last 3 days, and this is what we do every day. We have a senior coordinator on the floor who works with a supervisor of BMA on the floor to ensure that they provide oversight on behalf of ACSA to make sure that the supervisor of the BMA side has the number of people that they said they will have on the floor and declared for the peak, for the planning. We also ensure that we implement contingency plans during long queues and agree on fast-tracking counters, engage assistant director regarding any operational challenges. We share our daily plan with the commander of the port at 12 o'clock midnight to prepare for the next day's operation. So this information is already shared to prepare for the day before. The role of our coordinators as well that report to the senior coordinator. They will meet every morning with the supervisor at BMA on the floor and share operational plans. They will monitor peaks and queuing times for the passengers. They will assist with fast-track passengers and facilitate to counters agreed upon in case. Now, this is very important, colleagues. we do this to make sure that when a passenger is in the queue and they haven't been attended to and their flight is about to depart, we make sure that between ourselves and the BMA, we fast track that passenger so that they get processed and they don't have to be left behind by their flight. Passengers during challenges like this, they really appreciate this kind of service, and we want to make sure that we deal with their anxiety during such challenges and in any normal operating day, so that we assist them with these issues when they go through our immigration. We engage supervisors regarding breaks to minimize those breaks during peak hours. For example, we speak a lot, engage a lot with our BMA colleagues to say, colleagues, you have the plan. You know between 7 and 8 you can't go to lunch. Please make sure you don't take lunch so that we can process our passengers. This is what we do on a daily basis to engage. And then finally, we ensure that the manning levels, as declared by BMA, they will be there at the right times. And then this is just the number of people that we deploy at the BMA to make sure that we assist our colleagues at BMA during daily operations and during peak hours to assist our passengers and calm them down during queues. Now, our core message, like I said, and I indicated the waiting times because of the challenge. For domestic departures, we are asking passengers to arrive at least 2 hours before departure for seamless processing. Because you still have to go through security, you still have to go, first you must do check-in, secondly you must go through security. After security, you must find your gate. So we are asking that during this busy period, we've mentioned the numbers, that please arrive 2 hours before. For international flights, we are asking all passengers to please arrive 3 hours instead of 2 hours, 3 hours early, so that you can be processed efficiently and you are able to get parking, you are able to travel into the terminal, be processed at BMA, do some shopping of course, and then be able to be ready to take off for your flight. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a slide also as a core message that will also go to social media. It will go to all communication platforms to remind our passengers and really ask them to work with us and arrive as early as possible. So please let us keep this very important slide in our minds so that we are all able to make sure that passengers have this information and they can plan their travel properly. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, these are just the passenger projections between today, the 19th until the 24th, and then between the 25th and the 31st of December 2024, and then between the 2nd of January and the 15th of January 2025. Tomorrow, the 20th of December, is our busiest day at OR Tambo International Airport. As the CEO mentioned the numbers, in terms of international arrivals passengers, just for tomorrow, we'll be processing 10,536 with 145 aircraft movements. And then for international departures, we'll be processing 10,350 and 148 air traffic movements. In total, for the week of the 19th to the 24th, we'll be processing 59,594 passengers with 803 movements for arrivals. And then for departures, it will be 60,102 passengers with 834 departure movements. Similarly, between the 25th up until the 31st week, we'll be processing 68,945 for arrivals and 928 movements. International departures, 69,998 and 964 aircraft movements. In terms of international arrivals, from the 2nd of January 2025 up until the 15th of January 2025, we'll be processing 137,596 passengers with 1,849 aircraft movements. And then in international departures for the same period, it's 152,096 and then 2,078 aircraft movements. From a domestic perspective, for the same periods, the 19th to the 25th, it will be 134,300 arriving passengers with 1,211 movements. And then domestic departures, it will be 127,808 with 1,150 aircraft movements. So you will notice that the movements in domestic are much higher than the movements in international because during this travel period. And then the total for the 26th to the 31st will then be 114 and 54, and then 1,029 movements. And then domestic departures, it's 108,474 with 974 movements. Between the 2nd of Jan to the 15th of Jan 2025, we'll be doing domestic arrival passengers of 261, 918 with 2,382 movements. And then domestic departure projections for the same period of the 2nd to the 15th of January 2025 will be 249,279 departure passengers with 2,252 aircraft movements. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kambule, for that detailed presentation. We will now allow our leaders to resume their position. Members of the media, we can now engage on a question and answer session. As it is protocol, please indicate the media house that you are presenting and also introduce yourself. And if you could kindly indicate where you're directing the question, to which leader in the room. We will now take questions.
Thank you. Anastasia for Jacaranda FM News. Just for clarity, the information that you did give to say it will go out on social media to make sure that those who are traveling are aware of expected time that they should be budgeting for. Is it also going to be distributed via different airlines just to avoid delays in between your communication and their other communication? And just for clarity, in January, you said that the 15th is the busiest. When are you expecting? When is the last day or the last busiest day you expect the travelers? Thank you.
Veronica Macharia from Newsroom Africa. I think just a bit of clarity as well regarding the situation that happened with the BMA's biometric system. What have we learned from what happened here at OR Tambo? I know that Commissioner, you said that it was a glitch and was unresponsive. It managed to only happen at one port out of the 72 that we have. But you know, what are implementations to make sure that it doesn't happen at your bigger airports as well, like Cape Town as well as KZN? What actually happened? I know we keep saying it was unresponsive. Another thing is we saw that the presentation that you gave, that there is, of course, if anything were to happen, that long delay that we often see. What is the best measure, I think, for passengers to do in terms of those delays? When you're sitting for 30 minutes, it builds the frustration. You know, what more can ACSA do in terms of easing the frustrations that happen with passengers? We know that there has been accusations of limited communication. I know, CEO, you've really come out to say that You try to be transparent as possible, but it seems it's still not landing in terms of passengers. What more can we do to get information on the ground? That's me for now.
Thank you for that question.
Good morning. I came a little bit late. Maybe you might have touched on this, but let me just ask these two questions. What kind of risk assessments are being conducted to identify potential security threats during this festive season? And the second one is, what are some of the common security threats that have been identified during the past festive seasons, and how are they being addressed? Thank you.
I think that's it for now. Mr. Kambule, you can lead.
Yeah. So the first question was on the busiest day, which is the 20th of December. So we actually had two busiest days this festive season. The 13th of December, 2024. The second one is the 20th of December, 2024. And the least busiest day in our peak period will be the 15th of January 2025. Those are the dates. And then in terms of what is it that we are doing, to your question, to assist passengers and deal with their anxiety, during long queues and all that. Like I have mentioned, number one, we have a full staff complement of terminal coordinators that we deploy in the BMA area or in the immigration area at departures as well as arrivals to work with the colleagues from the BMA. Number two, it is this communication that I've just mentioned, the key message that we're going to reach out and send out to all the traveling public to inform them about the times we are requesting them to increase so that they are actually built up for the unexpected incidences at the airport, so that they know that they can plan quicker and be relaxed throughout their journey, so that they don't have anxiety of being late in the event of an incident. Three, internally, when I say internally, I'm talking about operationally, all of our stakeholders within the airport, airlines, so there are platforms in which we engage with our stakeholders. One or two of those platforms are, there's an AOC, which is the Airport Operators Committee, ACSA is part of, the BMA is part of, and all other stakeholders are part of. Then there's an Airside Operations Association, and all these associations, we disseminate the same information so that airlines can also communicate with their travelers and give them and share this information with them so that they can prepare for their journey. The fourth one is the ACSA app, which we also disseminate information on to communicate with the public, to say, please make sure that you come to the airport early so that you are able to deal with unforeseen operational issues that might cause delays or frustrations during your journey. But finally, then ACSA also have employees which we call passenger services agents. They are always on the floor at the airport, disseminating information real time to the passengers so that their journey is also less frustrating and calmer at the airport. So we do our best to disseminate information as much as possible, including this media briefing, having invited you, and we are able also to reach our passengers in their homes, on radio, social media, and all we can possibly use platforms that are available to communicate with the media. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, colleagues. Maybe let me address Veronica's question. Firstly, Veronica, you're asking what actually happened. So what actually happened is a technical, complicated thing. But I will try to kind of explain it. Firstly, like I said, since 2010, we've been using what is called Enhanced Movement Control System. So Enhanced Movement Control System is one of the fastest systems in terms of processing people. And the reason for that, technically, it is because it is a system that is localized. It is not necessarily a system that is good for national security matters. So in other words, if you continue using the Enhanced Movement Control System, you will facilitate people very fast, very better. But at the same time, you will also be facilitating criminals into your country. That is the unfortunate reality of an Enhanced Movement Control System. Why? Because it is localized. Now, the new system we are talking about here is Biometric Movement Control System. So Biometric Movement Control System is a system that is deployed in various other jurisdictions globally. And it is not just a localized system. So what a BMCS does is, if you arrive before an immigration officer, they take your fingerprint, which is biometric. And then that particular system there is going to go into a number of other systems in the background to be able to do further verifications as to whether is this person indeed the person that they claim to be, and is this person actually the owner of the passport that they are actually presenting before an immigration officer. That particular system will also go back into other systems and verify, for instance, if this particular person is a wanted criminal by other jurisdictions, for example. So ordinarily, a biometric movement control system by its nature is not as fast as a EMCS. The reason for that is because it is a security-based system to make sure that there is background or back office analysis in terms of the activities of whoever is appearing before the immigration officer. One of the things that we've been advancing to be doing, obviously, was to also have it linked even to the Interpol system, so that if anybody is listed in the Interpol red list, for instance, by just putting your finger, we'll definitely know this particular individual is wanted for Interpol, and will definitely get that person arrested. So it is a good system. Now, what happened? Now, when this system has to go into these other systems, it uses high levels of your network-based activities. So in that particular instance, there will be other systems wherever the systems are, which might happen, for example, to be a bit slow wherever they are, those particular systems. So when the system is busy searching in various other systems, once it realizes a particular system is slower, then it delays. That is why, as Jabu had indicated, it is unresponsive, meaning it delays to bring back the data back to your screen. And that is exactly what happened. As Jabu had indicated, it then changes the times from at least around 10 minutes to ultimately 30 in terms of the waiting time of the person on the queue. And that is what we are dealing with. Now, you are then asking, what is it that we need to be doing to make sure that it doesn't happen? Let me put it this way. You see, Border Management Authority started operating last year, 1st April 2023. We inherited these systems from the Department of Home Affairs. One thing that we can say, which is a fact, is that the network base of these particular systems is a bit obsolete and is a bit slower. So because of that, the only way we can get all of this thing done is to be able to revamp our systems in terms of the networking, the platforms, the infrastructure, and all of that. All of these are ICT-based complicated things, and I don't want to go into those technical discussions per se. But that is what we are actually to do in the next financial year. With whatever that we are going to be allocated from the National Treasury, we have put money aside to be able to assist us to revamp the system. This is not just for OR Tambo, but this is also for the rest of our ports going forward. So that is basically what we can do to make sure that it doesn't happen. So what do we do in the meantime? What we do in the meantime is we have ICT technicians literally sitting in all our ports. As I'm talking to you now, there is a team in Bait Bridge, in Libombo, in Masero Bridge, in Crowlers Bridge, literally Cape Town, everywhere. And they are there to ensure that should there be any technical issue, they respond. That is why, if you listen to Jabu's presentation, you will realize there that the technical glitch dropped the things, but we had to actually respond very fast. And in no time, it started going up because we were able to respond quicker. So that is basically the essence. So that is why we always say that what becomes critical, what is your ability to respond, to deal with a glitch that would have transpired? And that is basically what we have done. Now, the last issue is the colleague's question at the back, which I did not get the name. What is it that we are doing to deal with issues of security and the risks going with all of these issues? Let me put it this way. In terms of people movement and in terms of border management, I'm responding here in terms of border management. I suppose the CEO might talk about security broadly in the airport, but in terms of border management activities from a risk point of view, we have implemented what is called Advanced Passenger Processing System. So this is the system where all the airlines, when they bring people into the port, they give us data of everybody that is supposed to enter into the aircraft. We are able to analyze each and every individual and understand who they are, understand their risk profile, and understand if these kind of people are desirable to enter the Republic. So out of that, we are then able to identify possible risk individuals in this particular instance. So we have the National Targeting Center in the Border Management Authority, and that is where all this analysis actually is taking place. So in this instance, what it means is we are then able to pick up people that are likely to be nefarious characters in the value chain. But at the same time, we also work with our intelligence communities to be able to identify potential risks and be able to do the interceptions. And I think working with members of the Southern Police Service, you have seen the numbers of interceptions of people who literally would even drink drugs and put them in the stomach with the view of taking them out later, who then get intercepted and all of that. I think you have seen all of those in the media. So these are some of the things that we have actually put together to make sure that we deal with the issues. That is why people will realize that more and more of individuals will actually be approached with the view of being spoken to. It doesn't mean that they are criminal, it just means that they need to be spoken to verify certain things before they are allowed to come through. That is an international practice. It's not a South African issue. Every jurisdiction does that, and that is exactly what we are doing in terms of risk management on the basis of dealing with national security imperatives as a country. And by the way, all of those issues are to be intensified as we go forward. In as much as we have the responsibility of the seamless movement of persons, we also have a responsibility of the preservation of the country's national security imperatives. And that is why we actually try to balance the two as we go and do this particular work, as it were. So that is basically the response that we could give in this instance. But of course, the broader security risks issues into the airport in totality, I think the CEO might reference on that one. Thanks.
No, thank you very much. I'm going to do two things in response to that question. First, I'm just going to describe the overall coordination and responsibilities in the security environment. And the Commissioner has covered what is a border management authority responsibility. There are several security agents that work in an airport platform. First is BMA, and you've heard that particular articulation. And then ACSA is responsible for what is called Annexure 17 of the Chicago Convention, which relates to aviation security. We do this through a mechanism that is also coordinated by the CAA, which is the National Aviation Security Program plan that basically coordinates aviation security, of which ACSA is part. DOT, CAA, ACSA, and other role players sit in that forum and are able to drive a South African, derived from the International Convention, Annexure 17, the plan for South Africa on how to manage security. It is highly regulated, colleagues, and it is governed by international and global standards, because international passengers particularly want to be subjected to the same security standards, whether they are traveling in New York, in London, in Addis Ababa, or in Johannesburg. And that's the overall responsibility for adherence to that. We then have another layer of security which relates to the national key point, and that would also include the presence of SABC. I see there are SABC members who are here present with us. And primarily the SABC mandate at a national key point is similar to that they have everywhere, which is about crime prevention. And they actually also have a police station here with the presence of hundreds of members that are operating on the platform, responsible particularly airside, landside, more prominently on landside on crime prevention. Then we have other agencies as well that are on the platform. As you would imagine, we can't carry out these operations without intelligence, so the intelligence community is present. A number of times you've heard reports that the Hawks have caught somebody here for whatever smuggling activity. We also have several others in the security cluster that are operating exactly on this platform. And the final leg of that is actually still security, but it relates particularly to the role of EMPD, which is another police force that is responsible for the traffic side. They man the road network as it comes into this airport, and they are also having responsibilities towards securing the environment in as far as law enforcement is concerned in that area. Now that requires quite a lot of coordination, and as such there is a committee that is held that meets on a regular basis, and they are able to coordinate the activity amongst themselves. I must give comfort to indicate that from a security perspective, we are audited very frequently, even by international bodies. The first is the International Civil Aviation Organization, which audits us from an aviation security perspective to see that we have the correct equipment, the correct numbers, the correct perimeter fence detection, and everything else that is necessary, which is required in terms of the international standards. We are also then audited by what is called FAA, which is the Federal Administration of the United States, also because the United States take a view that where their airlines operate, from a security perspective, they need assurance that the normal security standards they expect are up to their standards. It's really for the protection of people that travel to the United States and a compliance level that's necessary for those airlines. We're also audited by TSA, which is a transport agency in the United States, security again, and they are responsible for coming through once in a period to assess how we're performing, and they need to be satisfied that our standards for security are up to their standards in order for their airlines to operate. On a regular basis here at home, we are regulated and managed and audited by the Civil Aviation Authority, and the security part of that. They also do safety audits, but they also do security audits. And they consistently over time really manage how we implement in security programs on the platform, how we coordinate, and every time there's something that's not as it should be, they flag it. We have a period for corrective measures, we implement those corrective measures, and we're able to basically ensure that we keep up to the standard that is expected by that plethora of institutions that oversee aviation security, including then, in terms of the National Aviation Security Plan, the roles and responsibilities of others who operate on this environment. I have General Petros here with us, and I'd like him to just do a final contribution, who's the Group Executive responsible for Enterprise Security and Compliance, who would just touch on the issue of the specific risk management. In fact, I'm not sure if some of you were present at the briefing on the 12th. He did a specific presentation on the preparation for the festive season and the risk assessment and management for the festive season. General.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, CEO and the Commissioner. I think the Commissioner and yourself, CEO, you covered most of the point that I would have touched on. You'd remember last week when we were doing the briefing, we indicated that you might have a problem of unruly passengers if there's a blockage somewhere. I think we experienced this week when we actually had the blockage in terms of the movement of passengers. If we were not prepared for that, we would have had a chaos because you had so many people in one space. But the coordination between BMA and security and ACSA security in terms of processing the people actually worked, because the plan worked, because we could manage the people that are going through the detection system, that are going through the BMA. Same applies when they're coming into the country. So it worked. It's one of the threats that you will see when you have many people in a confined space at one time. It does pose a threat in as far as this is concerned. That's a threat that we identified as one of the threats that will be a problem. One of the threats, I think the Commissioner has already dealt with everything that relates to immigration, which we planned in a multidisciplinary team together with BMA, police, and ACSA. I'm not going to be going back to that, but I did touch them last week. Another threat that becomes a problem when you have many of the foreign people on the land side, not knowing where to go, you are actually running a risk of making them vulnerable to extortion, to people who want to help everybody that is there. So we actually planned in terms of having people, others in uniform, others not in uniform, to be able to monitor the space of the movement of the passengers when they leave the airport and when they're arriving at the airport. And the smuggling of contraband, which in collaboration with customs, is actually, we planned in terms of how we're going about. I think the Commission has already spoken about the drugs confiscation that are happening at the airport. Somebody was asking me, has that airport become the drug den, or what is the problem? The problem is not a problem, it's a good thing. For law enforcement, if the arrests that are made at the airport, it means law enforcement is doing work. We'll actually want to make more of those. What is the indication? If we're missing those in the past, it means there is not much work that has been done. Is to commend law enforcement around this issue of the confiscation and the arrests, direct arrests that are made at the airport. That's another threat that is facing not only this airport, but particularly the international airports. And at cargo, contraband, and also robberies, that we planned for the robberies. We are no actually stranger in this thing. There were 2 robberies that happened in the past in this space, and there was an attempted robbery that happened in 2022. So we did plan for such occasions around the space. And also airport existing around the bigger policing precinct. We are looking at the threats around this policing precinct, that is hijacking, robberies, business robberies. We are actually planning with the private security that is contracted at the airport to be able to deal with those potential threats that might be experienced on the space. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those inputs. Do we have questions from the room? I don't see any hands in this regard. Dr. Masiapata, Mrs. Pofu, Mr. Gambule, Mr. Petros, thank you very much for the briefing and the inputs that were made today. Members of the media, executives from ACSA, colleagues from BMA, thank you as well for being part of this briefing. We have now concluded the session, and thank you. If there are any one-on-one interviews, can you please approach me so that we can deal with that? And from ACSA side, yeah, we can just liaise on that. Thank you so much.